Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you are doing well and taking care of those closest to you and taking care of yourself most of all. That has been my crusade as of late, is to accommodate joy and prioritize one's own mental recalibration. Is sort of where I am at lately. I'm recording this going into the weekend. If you're listening to this on Monday, the May 8th, I'm recording this the Friday before, in advance of a very busy schedule for this upcoming week, which I'm sure lots of you have always had these kind of weeks where you have just a bazillion things on the calendar, and it's just going to be kind of one thing after the other that you're just kind of hopscotching through. That's the kind of week I'm coming up with. A lot of it is fun, a lot of it is work, and a lot of it is fun work. It's just one of those things if I really wanted to go well to the best of my ability, and I'll talk about it after it's happened. But I'm looking forward to it. And normally I transition to a sponsor for like CBD gummies or something. But as of now, still don't have any regular sponsors here on the podcast. Gotta keep working on those forecastable downloads and other such industry jargon. But the main thing that I love to do and think about on this podcast is having really entertaining and engaging and conversations that I learn from. And this particular episode is most certainly that. And again, just a lot of one of the most fun times I've had recording is this episode. My guest on the show today is comedian storyteller Jameer Pond. I met Jameer a couple of months ago when I was doing tech for Solocom at the People's Improv Theater, which is a collection of solo performances. There was stand-up comedy, storytelling, characters, pieces, and Jameer told this amazing story that I will not I will not get into here, but you should seek it out. And if you book shows, you should have him on your show to talk about it, because this is one of the funniest, most cathartic and thoughtful stories. And we do discuss it a bit in the course of this podcast. But I was captivated by Jameer's performance, and I runted. And before he left, after we did the shows at the Pit, I wanted to reach out to him so that we could have a chat on this show. And this ended up being one of the most. I am a hard laugh, and I laughed so much during the recording of this. I'm sure that someone might. I started doing the Bert Kreischer style, like laugh so hard where you can barely even start talking in a very squeaky voice. But this is a great episode of this podcast. It would be weird if I just came up here one day and said like, oh man, I don't know about this one, guys, but it'll be something. But this one I'm very excited to share with you all. I'll have links to all of Jameer's social media in the description, so make sure you follow him and seek out his work, because he's very funny, very engaging, and I can't wait to share this conversation with you. So thank you all again so much for being here, and we'll touch base after the interview. So let's get into it and talk to Jameer Pond. And because I've been around like the New York comedy storytelling scenes, I kind of view them as kind of different things but the same medium, and I've heard like some really like memorable stories from people, and I have to put your story that I saw you do in your solo show at Solocom at the Pit as like one of my top 5 of like my favorite New York performer stories, because, and I don't know how much of this story is out there, but there's first of all, I don't know, maybe you could think about this a little bit. Like, really, public humiliation is very like relatable. I think like I put myself in your position, and then and I don't know how big a fan you were of this rapper who did this to you, but then for there to be a song, like for it to like continue, like we're all trying to get like attention in this like realm of like independent show business, but then when it happens like this, it's just like, oh no, how am I gonna write this crashing plane?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Um, one of those things where I'm like, wow, this really happened to me and
Yeah.
nobody else. There's nobody else who I could like share this kind of thing with. So yeah, it's my cross to bear. I think that's cool though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because this story is so so epic. Like even like I can't imagine too many people have ever been like publicly humiliated in a in a stadium at their job.
At their
But
job.
um but I will say though, and the way you spin this story, and I'd love to like talk a bit about the composition of stories for the stage like this, is like the way you kind of spin it, like the whole arc, and then the fallout, and then like when you bring in with like what your mom tells you, that's like just it's a nice sort of catharsis. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, all this happened, but you know what? My mom is proud of me still, so that's really the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing.
I mean, at the end of the day, if Mama's proud, then it, everything kind of works out. And she really, she really did. She held me down. She really, spoke to me and was just like, "I'm proud of you. I would have kicked his ass, but I'm proud of you anyway for composing yourself." So yeah,
Of of course. And I'm gonna trying to trace this a little bit again. So you were working at this radio station, which is like New York City's number one like station for hip hop. What
yeah,
how old
yeah.
were you when this happened?
I was this was 2015, so I was 25, 26.
Uh-huh. Okay,
Yeah,
so
so I was 25, 26, and a videographer for the radio station. Yeah.
right. So you were still like very much like on your way up. And
Yeah.
then this kind of comes through. And and did you and I can't remember, did you grow up in New York or did you move here?
I don't know. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised.
Right
Born and
on.
raised. Yeah.
Right on.
Hmm.
My so is my wife. She's born and raised in Prospect Heights before it became all pie shops and Thai food.
Yeah. Right. Right. All that kale. All
Yeah,
that kale
exactly,
came in.
exactly. Back when Key Foods was just Eighth Foods. Um,
Yeah. That's really good.
a friend of mine said that years ago, and it's just stuck in my head ever since.
That's hilarious.
Um,
Yes.
so Brooklyn, and what neighborhood?
Fort Greene.
Fort
Fort Greene,
Greene.
Clinton Hill. Hmm.
Okay. All right. All right. So another area that has changed drastically
I
over the
mean,
years.
oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Like when I go back to visit my mom, people look at me like, who the fuck are you? And I'm like,
Uh huh.
I was born and raised here. My license still says here. Who the fuck are you? You know. So, but it's very much it's changed drastically, drastically.
Yeah. Is it all for I probably a lot of people would say it's for the good. Is that completely the case you think
No,
based on your
mm-mm.
experience growing up? Like is there
No.
something we could have kept that would have kept made it better?
Probably like more black people. Like if you want to be honest, you could have kept some black people. Like
Sure.
you could have got rid of
Sure.
some. I get it, but like it's a fair amount of black people who have left.
Of course, yeah.
But I think what I really loved about Fort Greene is that growing up it was just like super diverse. Like it was
Mhm.
everybody on my block. I grew up in a small like apartment co-op kind of style, but it was white people, black people, Latinos, and just everybody, Asians, and um, it was a really always been an artistic community. I grew up down the block from a 40 Acres and a Mule, which was Spike Lee's studio, and
Uh-huh.
like Spike used to have block parties, and you just used to see like Rosie Perez and Wesley Snipes and just people like walking up and down Fort Greene, and it was really really cool to kind of like grow up in a community that was like hella diverse. So Yeah.
That's awesome. There's that sense of
Mhm.
community growing up in big cities that, because I'm from like a super rural area, not even
Okay.
like a small town, like just more rural than that. So like everyone has
Where?
like Southern Maryland, so about an hour south of DC,
Okay.
kind of area that like historically a lot of like tobacco farms were there, and is
Mm.
now like where lobbyists get their summer house kind of place. Um, so like the kind of place that
Mm.
it's the kind of place that pop punk bands write songs about getting out of. Um,
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
if
Got
that
it.
makes any sense. So like
It
every
does.
so everyone has their like super nice house, and like maybe there are one or two friends that they come over, or maybe they go for walks in their like communities, not gated communities, but without the gates, basically. Um,
Right.
and you don't really get that sort of sense of like, hey, how you doing? Like when I would watch movies set in New York, and I would see someone like walking down their block, saying like, oh, hey, how you doing? Or whatever, or like whatever the city version of that is. I would always be kind of envious.
Probably with a thick Italian accent, because that's how. Hey, how you doing? That's how people
Yes,
always. Yeah, yeah. I'm
yeah,
walking over here. It's
yeah,
like, yeah,
exactly. Whereas, like, I feel like once you get into the rural areas and suburbs, like that's where people go to like isolate, to like get away from people. And
for
I
sure.
and I always like, I just always like wanted to be like the main character, like who just everybody knows and is friendly to. Like that's what I think your life was growing up.
It was not. Twas not for sure. Um, the kind of block I grew up on, like I also I didn't go outside a lot on my own block, so my specific block didn't have a lot of kids on it. So maybe
Right.
like around the corner and down the block, but like on my block, it didn't have a lot of kids. I'm the only child, so I spent a lot of time like alone, and if not, just at my friend's house or my cousin's house, but like on my own block, just in the house.
Yeah, I relate to that
Hmm.
exactly. I was an only child as well.
Come
Parent
on, Will.
Yeah,
We're here. Here we go.
we're right here, Jameer, absolutely.
One and done.
Yeah. It's just like
Hey.
a lot of time to be alone with your thoughts and like start
Yes.
thinking about things and formulating,
Hmm.
making connections. What was your so when you're growing up, like with all your thoughts, what's home like? What did your folks do? Your mom seems like a really great lady, even though I've never met her.
Yeah. No, my mom is she's super funny. My mom was always in education, so from young, I would say from about like when I was born to maybe about like 8 or 9, she was a teacher. And then she became a principal. And went on to be a principal of public school, and then became a superintendent of public schools in New York City. My dad was at the time, my parents got divorced when I was 9, so at the time he was like a vice president at Citibank or some shit.
Oh wow.
And yeah, he was really doing it. I think, don't quote me. I think he got fired for taking money like off the top. Like he was doing some like wild shit. but he's given his life to God, and now he goes to church. So like I can talk about it. But yeah, like I grew up um 2 bedroom apartment. My parents had a room. I had a room in Fort Greene, Clinton Hill.
Uh-huh. My mom was a teacher too. She taught elementary school for
Here
31
we go.
years.
Here we
Yeah,
go. Come on, Will.
dude. We are like on the same wavelength here.
Yes,
I love that, and also by like by corruption banker standards,
it
that's
was.
nothing compared
That's nothing. No,
to some of the shit that you see on the news that bankers pull off.
come
Like
exactly.
he didn't like he didn't like bring like the mortgage industry to its knees or anything.
No, no, no. It was no Madoff type shit. It was just
Right? Yeah,
like,
yeah.
let me skim a little bit off the top, and then you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the same kind of shit that like when I was working in like the service industry, like you didn't get all your fries at this comedy club I was the doorman at. You didn't
Come
get
on.
all the chicken
You gotta
because
you
I was
gotta
fucking
sample the product.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I was in that was like my like suffering from my art creative new to comedian to New York phase. Like I was fucking hungry.
I gotta eat.
Yeah,
I have to
exactly.
eat.
Dude,
Yeah.
exactly. And so when you were growing up, like what were you interested in? I'm looking behind you. I see I that's NWA behind you, and then I don't know what the poster
No,
is.
this is the internet. They're another black group, but they came out a
Oh.
lot later. But that's the internet, and that's Prince.
Okay, I
Hmm.
recognize Prince. And then what's that
Hmm.
poster above you? It looks like a painting of a
Oh,
guitar player.
yes, yeah. It's a Romeo Bearden painting. So this painting was like it was in my mom's apartment, and then when I got my apartment she gave it to me. But it was like a very like popular painting. I used to see it in like a lot of black 90s sitcoms, like
Uh-huh.
Different World or The Cosby Show. But Romare Bearden was a really famous collage artist based
Mhm.
out of Pittsburgh, and would do a lot of these beautiful pieces. I think he did a lot of artwork. Don't quote me on this, for August Wilson, like his plays. And
Okay.
if you ever see like August Wilson's plays,
Yeah.
I believe Romare Bearden designed like the playbooks and things like that.
Very cool. Yeah, I love
Hmm.
his art style. Like there's just something like
Yes.
very like classic, like it reminds me of a very particular era and time that I wish I
Yes.
was around to experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Same.
Um
Absolutely.
dude, so were you like an artistic kid when you were growing up?
I was a real talkative child. I always was the kid that got too talkative in school.
Mhm.
Um, but I was so influenced. Like I wasn't like I was decent in sports, but not like outstanding. Where
Right.
I probably quit my sports dream like around like fifth grade. I was like, this is not gonna happen.
Right.
But I was always into comedy, sitcoms, all
Mhm.
kinds of things. Married with Children, News Radio,
Yeah.
Frasier, Martin, the Wayans brothers, um, the Fresh Prince. So and then always SNL. Like I was a SN I was probably like the only 8-year old who knew who Linda Richmond, Mike Myers carried Coffee Talk. You talk about
Sure.
daughters, dogs.
Yeah.
No big whoop. Like yeah, like
Uh-huh.
I was really, really, really always dedicated and intrigued by comedy. And I can't forget. I have a painting. You can't see it, but Eddie Murphy, such
Yeah.
a hero of mine because of just the things he was able to do on screen, and it always inspired me. And I used to stay up and watch like sneak and watch like the HBO the one night stands, and
Mhm.
Comic View, which was really huge on BET. And yeah, just became a student of like comedy and funny shit from a very young age.
That's excellent. Very, very
Mhm.
early on. I love to,
Early on, yeah.
yeah, I love to hear his, yeah, that specific, that mid '90s SNL, like
Oh,
like you've got like Mike Myers. Was Kevin Nealon still on during that era?
Kevin Nealon was there. Kevin Nealon did he was doing Weekend Update. It was after Dennis Miller left. Then it was Kevin Nealon and then Norm Macdonald.
Uh huh.
Yeah, so I caught like it was probably like when Kevin Nealon got on. So probably from like 91 to like 99 were some of like my favorite years, like from the time where Mike Myers, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, all the way
Mm,
up to Farrell, Daryl Hammond, Anna Gaskire, Sherry O'Terry, Tim
yeah.
Meadows. Like those were like really, I mean, I studied. It was just so funny to me.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was a real like highlight era, and like
Hmm.
I feel like not enough people that in comedy talk about how funny Kevin Nealon is. Not only is he
Oh
very
my God.
not only is he a
What?
great stand up, but like he's a brilliant comedic actor. Like I went back and watched
Yes.
Weeds, and he's like one of the
So
funniest
good.
people
Yes.
on that show. There's just like that era was just an explosion of
Mhm.
funny stuff. It was
Absolutely.
incredible. So it was sketch comedy pretty early for you. Were you and comic view, um
Hmm.
does anybody in particular from like those kind of like TV stand up showcase shows
Man.
stick out to you?
I would say for one night stand, pretty early. Damon Wayans was one of my favorite. Uh, he's one of my favorite human beings that I don't know, but I think I know in my head. But
Uh-huh.
like I've recently rewatched his One Night Stand. This was right after he got kicked off of SNL
Uh-huh.
and right before him and Keenan did in Living Color. So he had half hour special and he brought all of his characters with him that he would later go on to do on In Living Color that he couldn't do on SNL. And I was it was brilliant. I mean, just brilliant. I remember watching him. I remember watching I mean, I never heard my mother laugh as hard as she did when she watched Chris Rock's Bigger and Blacker. I thought she was
Mhm.
being harmed physically. And I went out into the living room and I just saw my like Chris Rock I love Biggie, I love Tupac, but school will be open on their birthday. And my mother, like just falling over
Yes.
laughing. Um, Very just important to me growing up off rip. But as far as like comic view, I mean, there's just so many like uh people, Cedric the Entertainer, Ricky Smiley, Ronaldo Ray, Bruce, Leslie Jones, who is not an overnight success, but I've watched her since I was a child, and then to see her and her acclaim now is just like, all right, she didn't give up on her dreams, and like I'm so glad. It was so many people that even like they have made it, but then some people really flew under the radar that were just brilliant. But I watched them all. So
Oh, dude. Uh,
yeah.
that yeah, it's always fun like when you see that. Like when you see someone who you knew early on was gonna it was great. It's like good. I'm glad
Oh
people
yeah.
caught up to where I'm at. That was Bigger and Blacker was my first Chris Rock special I ever saw either.
Oh.
And it was like I remember watching it on Comedy Central like really late at night because after a certain
Hmm.
point they would they take the bleeps out.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I remember just the way he constructs, and I think he still does this. The way he kind of constructs like his jokes, like we'll start with like a big thesis statement that he reiterates through over the course of the bit.
Yes.
Like I'm not
Yes.
talking about rich, I'm talking about wealth, and like he'll just have
Yes.
every conceivable idea for a joke, or like um it's all right because it's all white. Well, the couple of jokes from I know that's from Never Scared, but
Hmm.
that joke about uh bullet control I thought was
Oh
the
my
most genius
gosh.
concept I had ever heard when I first heard it, and then again also like
Mm.
one of my favorite lines from Never Scared, which is a lot of great lines where he's talking about like imagine if the Philip Morris family. Obviously, I'm not going to quote it all here, but then it just ends with, "Do you know how illegal a pack of cigarettes would be?" Like that was like, and
Yeah.
because growing up super
Mm.
sheltered with like a super like classically conservative redneck kind of father, like that was the
Mhm.
first time I was ever like on one side of those kinds of conversations or those ideas, or starting to think for myself about stuff and not
Yes.
just parroting back what realizing like, oh hey, you're my dad and I love you, but you can be full of shit sometimes.
Hey, hey, for real.
Yeah.
You can be
Like
dad.
respect, but
Respectfully.
yeah, like I was like I love you, and that's why I have to say it. Um,
Mhm.
so did you think you were so did you get the idea of comedian early on? Because I saw you doing a storytelling show, and I
Mhm.
for anyone who's not like deep into comedy like we are, might not know that there's kind of like two different scenes of performance. This sort of like stand up scene, which does have a lot of storytelling stand up, and then what I like to call the Moth, like, and in that moment kind of
Yes,
performance.
yes. Absolutely.
Do you consider yourself
So
a stand up or a storyteller?
no, I consider myself a storyteller.
Okay.
But my first interaction with being on the stage was stand up. I remember being in the third grade and really being disruptive in my art class, and my teacher, I'll never forget her, Miss Granatelli. Um, Sat me down one day after class and said, "You can't keep doing this. If you are quiet the next class, I'll give you 5 minutes at the end of class to do whatever you want." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is it." And I remember being quiet, I was like, "Shut the fuck up." And I went and I practiced I practiced a set. I had just watched, now mind you, I'm 7. I had just watched Chris Rock's um Bring the Pain, and I
Hmm.
saw that on Comedy Central, and I was like, "Oh, like this is my magnum opus for me." Being in third grade at this art school, at this art class, and I remember doing like 5 minutes at the end of that class, and my friends were like crying, like laughing really hard, and I never forgot that feeling. And I can remember being in high school around like 14 years old, again, not popular, not athletically gifted. But I woke up one day in the morning right before I was gonna get on school. It was like CBS or something, and there were kids doing stand-up comedy on the news. And I remember getting my mother like knocking on the door and going, "Ma, like this is what I want to do." And so we found out that the Gotham Comedy Club had a program for teens, children, and teenagers called Kids in Comedy. And I
Oh.
remember going on my 14th birthday. Stu and Joanne Grossman ran the Kids in Comedy, and I remember going and then performing and then getting in the program. And so from about 14 to 21, I was a stand-up comedian. And then I think I was at I was really influenced by Eddie Murphy. I
Yep.
thought that the 18-year-old, 19-year-old prodigy thing was going to happen to me. And when I got about I got about 21, I remember performing in this club, and my cousin was there. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but when I was telling jokes, nobody said anything. I got no reaction. Not a laugh, not a cough, not a boo. It was just human beings staring at me. And I remember after that set, the cook came out and was like, you can always be a doctor. And I was like, you're the cook. Like, you're the fucking cook, man. But he was like, yo, there's other things that you can do. And I
Like a
remember
dark omen of your future.
yes, yeah, like this is not for you. But there are so many other things that you seem so smart. At the time I was going, it was the summer before I was going to grad school. I had graduated from college. I was going to grad school. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was going to
Okay.
grad school. And I remember I was doing like these summer shows in Brooklyn, and so I knew the host of one of the show. So that same show, when nobody laughed, he like put his arm around me and was like, let's give Jameer a big round of applause. He's going to grad school, y'all." And everybody was like, "Oh, well, great. Glad he's not doing this." And so I stopped performing for a long time because I didn't ultimately I didn't have anything to say.
Uh-huh.
And I back when I like probably when I turned 30, I started toying around with the idea of like getting back on stage and things like that. During the pandemic, I wanted to do a pseudo stand up, but like a TED Talk feel about my life that
Uh-huh.
wouldn't be all funny and things like that. But contain like, just laugh, but also like, oh my God. Um, and a
Yeah.
friend of mine was like, "Hey, you should take storytelling classes at the Magnet." And I was like, I have no idea what this is. And it was totally aligned in my mind with the thing that I wanted to do. So I took classes with Adam Wade, who's an incredible storyteller around New York City and New Jersey.
Oh yeah,
And
I've never met Adam, but he looms big over the
oh,
storytelling scene. Yeah, he's a
he's the godfather of New York storytelling. Like he
mm-hmm.
really is extremely impactful. And then I took his class, I performed in my show, and it was the exact feeling that I had in art class. Like having people just in the palm of my hands, their attention, they were laughing, they were silent in moments where I needed them to be silent for.
Right,
And
right.
it was just like, oh, this is what I want to do. Like I love stand up. I think it's an incredible art form. And storytelling is like its cousin from down the block, who's a
Mm-hmm.
little weirder and a little more in their heads and artsy. But I find it so fulfilling to kind of merge both because I didn't lose like I guess my cadence or timing from stand up. I just became a better storyteller.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, and like from when I've seen you before, and like all the cadences of like really great comedic storytelling are absolutely there. Like
yeah,
there's a narrative, and then there's jokes, and then there's punches, and
hmm
it's like it all kind of integrates very 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 seamlessly. So so these classes kind of opened your mind to this even being like a possibility.
I had no idea what the Moth was or any of this. I had no idea what this space was. I just wanted to do this kind of TED Talk style thing that included humor, but was stories about my life and that were true. And it blew my mind that something like this had already existed because for me I thought I invented it. I was like I've never seen
Hmm.
this shit before. But it was totally aligned, and once I started doing it more, it was like, oh, okay, the possibilities for this are just like endless for me, at least in my mindset.
Yeah, like you found the medium with which you can compose your show, your compositions.
Absolutely.
Like you're writing a symphony, and like you've just found the way that you're gonna do it.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing dudes. And so yeah, 14, and then that's a lot of years. And I feel like it's definitely like, and it's good to have that like sense of, because stand up, and I love stand up even when it hurts me, if that makes sense. People in comedy will
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a sometimes tumultuous Sid and Nancy kind of relationship. Um,
Mm, for
but
sure.
yeah, but I feel like it's really good to have those character building experiences and to like have like a very set focus, because then I feel like once you go over into like constructing narratives and building moments and like those peaks and valleys, that experience is invaluable.
Right? It is. Firstly, like I've failed a lot, and so like that part is out of the way. It isn't like afraid. The first time I had a show outside of New York City was the second week of my freshman year in college. And I'd been performing at the Gotham. I did Broadway. I did Caroline's. At that time, so I've done predominantly white crowds, and so people
Yeah.
were like, "Oh my God, you're the next Richard Pryor, like you're the next Eddie Murphy," and I was like, "Oh my God, I am okay." So I go to this all black school, out right outside of Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia rather, and
Okay.
I do my first show, and I'm fucking cocky, dude. Like I'm so cocky. I'm like,
Oh, I know.
I'm not going over my set. Yeah, like I'm worrying about like what I'm gonna wear. I already know what I'm gonna say. I'm not reading the room. I go on stage and I deliver what I think usually is the knockout punch right away. And I just see a whole bunch of people staring back at me, and then one guy in the middle of the crowd stands up and he goes, "Boo!" And then he sits back down, and then everybody else like boos me out of the fucking building. And
In
I
suburban
didn't run.
Pennsylvania.
This is yes, yes, yes. But these are like all black people from New York, from Philadelphia, from Baltimore. from DC, from Jersey, and this is my second week in school.
Oh my
And they
god.
just got me out of here. And it was so humbling. I was like, this is incredibly painful. But I knew that like that prepared me in a sense for when I got kicked off the stage when I was working at the radio station. I was like, I've been humiliated before. This is bad, don't get me wrong. This is catastrophic. Don't yes, it was bad. But
Right.
I knew I had been embarrassed like that before. Like this wasn't my first rodeo.
Oh
No pun
yeah.
intended.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Of course, it's because and once you've been rejected for like who you are and what you think, there's not a ton that can really knock the wind out of yourselves. It's like, what can you do to me that I
What can
can't
you
already do
do?
to myself? You know, uh,
Right.
that's
Right.
amazing. Like I'm picturing that crowd. It's like it's almost like one person basically like unleashes the floodgates to give you your like
Yes.
Apollo moment in
Yes.
Pennsylvania.
Yes. It was because after that, after he gave the signal, droves. I mean, it was waves of people just boo, like just
Right.
it was so. And I remember, I will never forget because I had to go to school with these people. I will never forget the people that I became friends with that booed the fuck out of me
I know, and this is like this isn't like on your way out. This is like you still got to do the
on
whole
my way in.
on your way in. Oh my
This
god.
is in.
Yeah, I'm just imagining you like you're Leonidas in 300 and like the one arrow comes and then just all of them just rain down on you. um
Yes.
so
Yes.
so
Yes.
so you have this humbling experience. This is grad school or undergrad?
This is undergrad. This is
So
my
this okay.
second week in undergrad.
All right. And what did you go to school for?
So I went to school for communications.
Okay.
Initially I wanted to. So when I was still doing stand up all the way up until I got to college.
Mhm.
Um, I had did this one show, and I don't know if you remember this guy, but he's a stand up. He was in Tropic Thunder. Brandon T. Jackson.
Mhm.
He was in Tropic Thunder, Big Mama's House 3, the third one, with Martin Lawrence, but he had done some stuff. But at the time, he had a tour called the teen. It was like the teens of comedy. It was kind of a playoff like the Kings of Comedy.
Sure.
And I met like one of the managers of the kids that was on that tour right before I left for college, and he was like, "I would love if you could audition, do some shows with us on the road." And I was like, "Oh man, I gotta go to college," and I like
Right.
I went to school instead, and right in the semester that I was going to Lincoln University, shout out to Lincoln, they had dropped and killed their theater program. So I was kind of like, I
Oh
wanted to
man.
go to school for acting and theater,
Yeah.
and it didn't happen. And so I was like, well, mass communications is, you know, a lot like it. I mean, if I go to school for that and kind of jump around, I can make it back. And that was my mindset. So I got a degree in communication.
Yeah, it's theater of but a different stage if
Absolutely.
that makes sense.
Yes.
I went to man, another thing. I went to school for theater as well. Like we're just
Okay.
living like the same
Look
very
at
very
us.
similar wavelengths here, dude.
Yes.
So yeah, all right. And then I imagine especially after this second week show just like, oh, well my communicating's not going really well. Good thing I'm studying it.
I wasn't doing much studying. I not at that first semester. I
Uh-huh.
was I think I hid for a weekend. I didn't come out of my dorm room for a weekend. I wanted to let it settle. Um the joke I told was about a cheeseburger. So like for the rest of the semester, people were like, "Yo, cheeseburger!" Or like pointing at, "There go that cheeseburger, dude." So I kind of like tried to hide and evade it, but I never did another. I hosted a lot at my
Mhm.
college, but I
Yeah.
never did like another traditional like stand up show. I was like, you're not gonna fight. Dude, I was cocky too. Like they had a camera coming around before the show, and I
So
was like, My name is Jameer. I'm gonna make Lincoln a lot of money. Like right before I went on, like real cocky shit.
Oh my God.
And then,
And then the next thing you know, Eddie Murphy just puts you in the piano.
yes, he flipped me in the piano and said good night. Yes, absolutely.
You're just in there
Yes.
with your oh
Oh,
my God. Oh,
oh, it was
oh,
so bad.
dude. But that's too much. I feel for you because I have had those moments on stage where it's just like I to share a similar moment for you. I'll tell you this exact moment. So
Hmm.
a couple of years ago, my wife and I are traveling. We're in Istanbul.
Okay.
And I said, and I get a show in Istanbul because I was like, oh, we're traveling. Maybe I'll do some stand up.
Hmm.
And so I go in there and I'm thinking I'm going to do all my best. I'm going to do all my best stuff. I'm going to be this like hot shot American comedian who's going to show how good comedy is in New York. And I didn't take into
Oh,
account the
oh
fact
God.
that and I'm in a and Istanbul is weird because you can't it's technically illegal to have comedy clubs, so they're like
Oh my God. Oh shit.
like stand up like improv is allowed to skate by, but stand up could be considered critical of the government, so they don't like that.
Understand.
So
Yeah.
I'm in this lounge on and it might have been on Labor Day. So Labor Day protests like shut the entire city down. I was walking down like
Mm.
the freeway and like going through armed checkpoints and avoiding rubber bullets and protesters and
Oh
stuff.
shit.
And I'm walking through like carnage on my way to do the set. And I'm still thinking, I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna. It's like this New York comedian, and
Hot shot. You used hot shot, which
I,
is
I'm gonna be
hilarious.
exactly. I'm gonna be this hot shot. I'm fucking Tom. I'm Tom Cruise in Top Gun. I got the need for speed, Jameer, and I go in to this. I'm opening
Oh
for.
shit.
I'm opening for this big comic in Istanbul. Like he's got a lot of followers on Twitter, and he's as tall as me. Packed show, completely packed show. Like there's a good amount of people here. And I go on stage, and I didn't consider the audience wouldn't understand English. So I am trying to
Oh.
do jokes, and then it is my
Oh.
I have never flopped sweat on stage before, but I'm
Oh.
just I could feel my heart racing from the anxiety of being in this, and I managed to squeak out a laugh at the very end by talking about a phrase I learned in Turkish, and then I rush off stage, and and then this guy, and then the headliner goes on and crushes for 2 hours with an intermission.
Oh
They do
my
intermissions. They do
gosh.
intermissions there, and then he grabs the crowd, comes back, everyone gets drinks, comes back, immediately starts crushing, and then at a certain point, he told me that the first thing he said was, "Did anybody understand what that guy said?" And everyone said no. And then at the second half of the set, he comes up and starts talking to me where I'm sitting at the bar in Turkish, and I have no idea what the fuck he's saying. But the crowd laughs at us or me,
Yes.
and I was like,
You.
okay, I got the laugh I needed. And then I remember slinking back to the hotel, bummed that I didn't become like the new king of comedy in
And
Istanbul.
Istanbul.
I was like, New York's not going well. This will be the way. I'll get bigger in New York.
Oh shit. Oh, you thought you were hot shot comic from New York. New
Exactly.
York.
Exactly. Oh, exactly, dude. And that's
Oh,
when and that's when I learned.
oh God.
That's when I remembered to stay humble
Yes.
when I'm
Oh,
going through doing my work. Just go and do the work. But I'm gonna go back. I'm
yes.
gonna get back there and open for that guy one
Hmm.
day.
You
It'll
will get back and go there,
it's gonna
and they
work
will
out.
understand you this time.
Exactly. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna
Yes.
do it. I'm either gonna learn Turkish or I'm gonna get a translator.
To be on stage with you.
To be on stage with the same way, like if you're at theater shows, you see somebody like doing ASL,
Signing, yes, yes, yes.
I'll have the equivalent of that. We'll be the Statler and Waldorf. We'll be a bilingual Statler and
That's
Waldorf.
one. That's amazing. That's so funny. That's
Uh
so funny.
this I have never told this. I've mentioned this story, but I've never told it like this. I've never done it on stage. I should probably do that.
Mm.
Um,
That's a great story.
well, I
That's a
appreciate
great
you.
one.
I
Hmm.
appreciate you, man. So you go through grad school. You do the videography thing, and then so this radio station incident. This happens like after. Uh, this happens, and then you become a storyteller. Is that what the timeline is?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that happened in 2015. So I wanted to be an on-camera personality.
Okay.
Um and I always wanted to be a radio personality as well. So I wound up
Yeah.
like working at like the radio station that I had admired for so long, but I wasn't like they just I wasn't gonna get in the door going in as a radio personality. Like I had no experience or anything like that. So I wound up becoming a videographer part time for the radio station and just like really networking and started interviewing, on the side and getting my credibility up. So I was really geared to be an on camera personality. I wanted to
Yeah.
have my own talk show. I wanted to have my own radio show. And so like the videography was just like my job, but it wasn't like my passion. And was doing Summer Jam, which is Hot 97's concert, and that incident with Travis Scott, he kicked me off the stage, and at that point, I was just like, my like this is going to be on my gravestone. Like this is the guy. It's
Sure.
not even my name. It's the guy, the cameraman that Travis Scott kicked off the stage, and I went through
Sure.
this whole shit where I'm like, I'm losing my identity, and I was just like, I refuse to be defined by this moment, and I just started working my ass off to kind of like make it a mention, but not make it the conversation.
Absolutely, dude. Because
Yeah.
that is but a footnote in the broader timeline that we're building
Yes.
here as Jameer
Mhm.
as the storyteller. So
Mhm.
so let's talk. And I know exactly what you're talking about, like because I do a bazillion different things. Like part of the reason
Right.
we even know each other is like in 2016 I was like I need a side gig. Like I was not doing very well when my wife and I first
Mhm.
met, so she's like you need to figure some stuff out. You can
you
work,
gotta you gotta figure this shit out.
right? It's like you can
Yeah.
it's like you could get paid to do things in comedy. Maybe it's not always being on stage. And
Mhm.
after I started listening, that's how I was like I ended up at the pit because I was like, well, someone's got to be in the board for all these shows.
Right.
And now and that's how I end up like doing Solocom and then doing the tech for I think the sketch group I've been teching for 7 years is like one of the longer running sketch groups now.
Oh,
Um,
that's fire. Yeah.
yeah, so like just not quitting, like just
Not quitting.
yeah, which is really all it is. And what I've also kind of realized is like there's no really ever any reason to stop unless you're just not enjoying it anymore, and you're
Right.
that's probably like the number one reason. But like yeah, I'll do a little stand up here. I'm in the booth for things. I'm on stage for other things. I do bands, do music stuff. Like
That's really cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
you just kind of like find like all your different paths, and then this is something I think about as well. Maybe the path you think you're gonna follow when you're younger, maybe that's not the one that you always end up following, but maybe you don't get to exact same place, or maybe you take the scenic route there. Um,
Mhm.
but that scenic route is all still worthwhile,
Absolutely.
you know,
Like
because
that's what go no, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say because I know a lot of very successful people in show business who are not happy still.
Oh,
So it's
like yes. Yeah. I think if it was up to me when I was like 21, Like I was like, I want to be a, I wanted to be a hot shot
Hot shot
comedian.
comedian.
Hot shot comedian here. I want to be a hot shot.
I'm gonna have to. I don't usually put the video of this out, but every time we say hot shot comedian,
You gotta,
that's got to be a YouTube short. I got to do it.
has to be. When I wanted to be a hot
Hot
shot
shot
comedian.
comedian.
Oh wait, take my wife, please. Like one of those, one of those guys. I wanted to be a hot shot. I wanted to be a hot
Hot
shot
shot
comedian.
comedian.
I wanted to be a hot shot.
Right. Yeah.
I
Which
like thinking
we all
about
do.
that,
Yeah.
which we all do. Like when I was 21, I just wanted to follow the same career as Eddie Murphy, and I
Yeah.
I realized that there's one Eddie Murphy, and he went through his journey, um and still going through his journey.
Yep.
I'm going through mine, and I'm very fortunate to be in this place. Like I wouldn't
Yes.
trade it for the world, but if it was up to me, I'd have pissed all of this away and had a mansion with a wife who I probably didn't care about, and a whole bunch of kids, and would have not been here. And I'm thankful and grateful to be here.
Yeah, exactly. Every disappointment or every change of plans leads to something equally great. You just got to be open
Come
to it.
on.
Just got to be
Yes.
just got to be
Yes.
open to it 100%. So
Absolutely.
so you're taking these story classes, your storytelling
hmm
classes, and how long into storytelling are we now in 2023?
I've been storytelling for a year and a half.
Oh, nice. So this is still
Yeah.
so this is still relatively new, and you're this good at it.
Super
But
new.
but again, I feel like everything is building up to this. So let's talk about I like manifesting projects and plans
Absolutely.
and stuff
Yeah.
on this.
Let's go for it.
So like I've done some solo pieces, and I've seen a lot of solo pieces. Is the Are you working towards like an hour? What's kind of the goal for this show that you came up with before you knew storytelling was even a thing?
So I was like I was working towards I wanted to do like not a necessarily an album, but like a playlist with different themes, different types of things that happened to me that would start off as like very much comedic, and then would go into like just real life base, and then would end off comedic. So it would be comedy throughout, but it would be like essentially like a TED talk. So I wanted to have like for instance, the Travis Scott story. There's a story about I tell a story about when I got jumped outside of a club for the first time. I have a story about me going skydiving for the first time. Me being a really shitty weed salesman in college and giving up after a week. Like so, there are these stories of my life that I've just been writing and constructing, and I didn't even know, like Solocom kind of came to me, a friend of mine named Karma Anderson, and we both take classes at the Magnet together. She's also on the sketch team. We're on a sketch team together. But she's like done all the improv classes and writing classes, and so
Mm-hmm.
have I, but she's done a lot more.
Yeah.
Um but she just sent me the link for Solocom. I had no idea what Solocom was, and so when I saw, and Julie and I are part of the same sketch team at the Magnet.
Uh huh.
So when I saw Julie's show, I was like, oh, that's kind of what it. I had no idea. I was just like, I'm gonna just do these two stories and bow out gracefully. But now that I know, and I've seen more solo shows now, and so like now that I was like, oh, I could definitely put together like an hour about my life and just like different and include all of these things, but like have an overarching theme about it. But I just had no idea like these things were even like possible. Like send me the thing about Solocom, and I was just like, all right, yeah, yeah, sure. I sent it in, sent my money, didn't even think I would hear back. After that, the Moth asked me to do some like dates just like across the country. And so right as
Oh,
Solocom was approaching, the Moth like was looming. And so I was like, I don't fucking know what to do for Solocom. Like I'm kind of nervous cuz I kind of shot myself in the foot with this. And I spoke to Adam, and Adam also was doing Solocom. He was just like, just do some stories, bro. Like, don't take it that like it's serious, but prepare for the Moth, and that's what I did. So I've been touring around the Travis Scott story, the story where I got kicked off his stage, for the Moth, and just kind of getting my reps up and seeing like
yeah.
what this is, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, I can do this, and I can add more. I don't need permission. I think I was waiting like for people to be like, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. And now it's just like, oh, just do whatever the fuck you want. Everybody's doing what they want.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna do what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool, man. Yeah, because like the great thing I like about Solocom is it's almost like I sort of view it as like almost like the Warp Tour of the solo shows at the Pit. It's like
Yes,
it's
yeah.
there's very much like it's there's a less precious feeling to it. Like we're all gonna come in, we're gonna do our stuff, we're gonna entertain you, and then someone else is gonna come, and
Hmm.
especially because I had been watching them like all day because they did like 3 blocks of shows that particular day. So then
Right, right.
and so when we were coming into that last one, especially because like we had like half the performers we were supposed to for
Oh yeah,
that
like
block.
two of them dropped out.
Yeah, so I
That's
was
the
like,
thing.
I remember up there, I was like, well, let's let this stretch. We'll we'll keep this going
Hmm.
for a little while. But dude, like you and Julie, like everyone was that was probably like that crowd was like they were really into it,
Yeah,
and
it was such a great crowd.
oh, it was so good. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize the Moth had like any kind of touring thing because that's something that I've always thought about is like I know the storytelling community like exists in New York, and I imagine it probably exists in like L.A., Chicago, other
Hmm.
big comedy cities. But I was always kind of thinking like, well, how do you tour this outside of it just being like a theater piece? But the Moth
Yeah.
actually has like storytelling shows that it does and it tours around in different cities, and you were doing
Oh
these.
man, like well, I actually I have a show coming up in Kansas City, that I'm like prepping
Nice.
to do the show for. But like I also didn't know like how enormous like the Moth community was. Um,
Yeah, it's
it's
massive.
it's it's insane. Like the I did a show in Harlem at the end of February. So I won. I after like doing the storytelling classes, I started going to the Moth. The second time the first time I went to the Moth, I got picked. Like you put your name in the
Yep.
hat.
Put your
I was
name
one of
in.
the 10 people that got picked, and I came in second. And it was like my first time doing it, and so I was like, oh, I'm just gonna come back and do the shows again. And I didn't get picked for like another like 9 months, and
Ooh.
it was a yeah, I just kept, but I was like, I know I can do this. So I just kept going to shows. And there was a show at in Soho at the I forgot what bookstore, but Housing
Housing
Works. It was like
Works?
a housing.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I just randomly was like, let's go to the show. I randomly put my name in the hat, and I felt that I was like, oh, I'm gonna get picked tonight, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I got picked, and I did this story about like me selling weed for a week, and I actually won that particular show, and I was the storytelling champion of that show. And then like a few months later, somebody from the Moth reached out to me and was like, "We're doing this show in Harlem, in February, and I heard about your stories, and I would love to help you and prepare for that show." Did that show? It was like I think it was about like 750 people, and it was like my first like huge. This is a huge venue, and I killed. And once I did that, the Moth just started like producers and directors started reaching out to me and like, hey, we would love for you to, I did a show at the Ace Hotel Theater, and it was like 1,600 people, and that was crazy. And I did
Wow.
Santa Barbara, and I did Princeton, and so like I've just been doing these like Moth shows, and just really like working on the craft. But I hadn't, again, I had no idea these things even existed. In fact, I went to that same show that I did in Harlem in February of 2022. And I went to that show and I watched in the same building, same kind of date, around the same date. And I was like, I want to be on that stage. Like I want to be on this show. And the following year, I was on that show. No lie.
Amazing, dude. I love
Yeah,
hearing these moments when they come full circle like that.
yeah, it was such a full circle moment.
Dude, this is incredible. I'm thinking of other things that I think you should be on because you're awesome and they're awesome. Do you know the podcast Snap Judgment?
Yes, actually, I follow Snap Judgment. I listen to Snap Judgment, but I haven't. I don't know how to get on Snap Judgment, but I would love to be on Snap Judgment.
Oh,
Actually,
I know they've got a website or something where you can
yeah,
pitch to them because I'm just imagining like that Travis Scott story, and then you put some like that Snap Judgment kind of beat under it, and then
yes.
you cut to the song, which I'm not I don't want to I want to be real with you. There was a part of my brain that thought about finding that on Spotify real quick and playing it right as the
You
end of
can
your
play
set
it.
at the end of your set, but I
Oh, at
didn't
the end of the set,
at the end of your at the
that
end of
would have
your
been
set
funny as fuck.
because I was like, oh, I don't want to I don't want to reinforce the hurt.
I appreciate that. It is it can be jarring at times. I remember after like a mob show, one of the producers was like, "So would you be comfortable with like not but it was right before it. He was like, "Would you be comfortable with us playing it?" And I was just like, I wasn't even thinking about it, so it kind of caught me off guard. And then they started playing it, and I was like, I don't want to hear this right now. Like right before I'm supposed to go on stage, it's like, but it also fueled me to kind of go back to that place. So it's a reminder that like, hey, this is you. It happened, and this is why I'm here though. Like I'm here to tell this story. Like it's a
Hmm.
true thing that happened. So I don't have. I actually, to be honest, I appreciate Travis Scott's music a lot more now. I didn't know him before it happened,
Uh-huh.
but now I have like songs on my playlist that I'm like, oh, I love this. Love this song by Travis Scott. It's fire.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess you could kind of tell people if you ever wanted to be singular, it's like technically I co-wrote a song with Travis
I
Scott.
mean, if we just gonna be honest, he might not admit it, but that was a very specific thing that happened to me. And when you go to Genius and you highlight the lyrics, it's definitely a screenshot of me about to get kicked off stage.
Oh my god, the
So,
screenshot comes up.
yes, yeah,
Oh
yeah, yeah.
wow, I
At
didn't know
least it
that.
did prior. I don't know if it still does, but
Mhm.
when I looked it up, it was definitely me holding a monopod with a camera attached to it, about to be let off stage. So
Oh, wild. But dude,
yeah.
I'm so psyched to hear that you're doing all of these moth shows because like I could definitely see like there's like a residency in your future like at Cherry Lane or something like that. You're just like too engaging of a performer to not to deny. Like I was
Thank you, Will.
and I was like that was a reason I came up to you after a set because like
Mm.
a certain like I try not to mix two of the worlds like when I'm working, but
Hmm.
I was like I gotta talk to this dude more. He seems cool, and he probably knows a
Wow.
lot of the same people that I do. Um,
And which I might, but also like I'm still very new to the scene as well. Like I'm just learning and getting acquainted and still going to more shows, and this is very super fresh for me. So I'm such in like just student mode and soaking up game. So when you reached out to me, I was like, I didn't know you, but I was like, absolutely, like I want to do your show. You seem like a really cool guy, really nice vibe, weren't a weirdo. I love people who, aren't don't come up to me and are weirdos. And it was just like, yeah, I want to open myself up more in terms of telling my story and just getting to have people getting to know me.
Absolutely, man. Well, I hope
Yeah.
people listen to this want to get to know you more. What can we plug before we get out here, man? Where can people find you? What have you got coming up? Let's talk
When
about
is this coming out?
it. Probably not next week, but the week after.
Okay, so the week after would be
We're looking at like beginning May 8th.
May 8th. Okay, all right. So perfect. All right, so right now, I'm doing a show in on May 10th, for the Moth. I'm gonna get the details for you. I have a show May 10th, and I have a show May 13th in Hoboken, and that's a show that Adam Wade is producing.
Sweet.
With the Moth, it is boy, with the Moth. It's a show called Play It Again, where people come back and tell some of their stories that they did on the Moth. So I'll be retelling, like, I'm pretty sure the story about me getting booed off stage for the
Nice.
first time. And then I'll be telling the story on it's called on the Waterfront and Hoboken, and that is, I'm gonna get that for you now. I'm gonna get that for you now. I'm gonna get that for you now. It's not happening as quick as I thought as I thought it would be, but on the Waterfront, that is happening May 13th at 8 p.m. and it is Mile Square Theater in Hoboken. So the Moth is in Brooklyn, and on the Waterfront storytelling show is in Hoboken. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, dude, this has been great, and I hope that we
I
get to share a stage soon.
I would honestly love that, Will. Thank you so much for having me. I would love to come back in the near future. You're a great host, and this was super fun. Thank you for sharing Chris Rock jokes with me.
Of course, man.
And,
Well, I mean, we're just a couple
yeah.
of hotshot comedians.
Hey, we're hot shots. Hey, come on,
Come
huh?
on.
Come
Thank you so
on.
Jameer, thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever laughed listening to playback of interviews while I'm editing, but I remember that part of the conversation so well, and to hear the story of Jameer's very public on stage humiliation, I feel a certain kinship having gone through the same thing myself. But mark my words, friends, I will return to Istanbul, and I will have a good set someday. I don't know when. I don't know how, but it will happen. Folks, Hoboken, New York City, the Moth. Make sure you go out and you see Jameer because he is incredibly funny, incredibly captivating, and it's going to be a great show. So, links in the description for everything related to Jameer. Make sure you go out and see him live because I want funny people to be known by people who like funny people. Everything related to Jameer is in the description, and make sure you come out to the On the Waterfront storytelling series. That is our show for today. Thank you all again so much for being here. If you enjoyed this podcast and think you know a friend who would be interested in it as well, you can send them to awesomedisaster.com. That has links to everywhere you can get the show. We are on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. If you're looking for a way to help spread the word, you can share those episode links, and you can hit subscribe to help us please our algorithmic overlords. And you can follow me on all platforms as well. I am at Comic Will Carry on Twitter, at Will Carry 23 on Instagram, and at Between Awesome and Disaster on Instagram. I'm also at Comic Will Carry on TikTok, and for the time being, still at Will Carry on Hive and Mastodon. So thank you all again for following me. And if you guys want to go a little bit further in support of the show, I do have a merch store as well as a Patreon. It is patreon.com/awesomedisaster. And our merch store, you can get the link to at awesomedisaster.com as well. And folks, I will I can't wait to update you after this week. I know I'm going to end it by seeing Frank Turner live, and friend of the show, and the Interrupters, and I can't wait for that. So thank you all again so much for being here, and I'll see you next time between awesome and disaster. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaxxed and boosted, and stomp out fascism. Take care, everybody.